Hey everybody, I just wanted to show you some of what I go through before taking WIL out. So if you need to flash the controller for any reasons, if there's anything new on that program, you'll have to take these screws on the back off. All right, once you've got those screws off, you need to be very gentle because this radio is still connected. So I just like to sort of separate it like that. And then you can unplug the MKR13 from that little socket there and take it to program. And so the program that I set up to program it is this controller V4. And then if you open that up in Arduino, so you'll go board. So this is not the Arduino Giga, this is the SAMD, this is the 1310. So you have to set that and then select your port when this is plugged in. And then I can pop it back into the socket. Once you've done that, you can just very carefully thread those extended button sticks through the holes. They might pop off, they're hot glued on, so you might have to re-hot glue them if they come off. And then you can reinsert those screws. And now I'd advise you to maybe not screw this back on if you're not sure that it works. You can pop on the 1310, hold it without the controller handle and do some tests. Make sure it still works. Now this USB cable is only for powering it. So if we plug it into something here, we should see it come on. Okay, so I think I figured out what happened there. I didn't carefully reseat the 1310. So let's go back over that one more time. So we need to make sure these wires are out of the way. So I kind of just push them to the side and then very carefully push back in that 1310. All right, and then if you want to double check before screwing it in, whoops, let's go this way. Then we can pop this in and we'll see that our screen turns on. You can test functionality with it taken apart. Now that the controller is all put back together and good to go, let's look at how to actually upload to WIL. And we're gonna go to Boat V4 and then open up that INO there, tools, board, Arduino Giga, and then select your port and you can upload. All right, now that we've got the controller program uploaded and we've got WIL's program uploaded, I wanted to show you what you can kind of expect to see and some things that I like to check before taking WIL out. So the first thing I'm gonna do is reset our Arduino Giga here and then pop open our serial monitor while the laptop's connected. And if everything's working right, we should just see these numbers which are indicating our speed. And so if we take our controller over here, whoops, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. And I press up on the thumbstick, you'll see our number there changes and it changes there as well. All right, so that's the first thing we should check. And then we should also make sure we can flip through our modes. So there we're in autonomous, there we're in tugboat, and then there we're back to remote control. And that is that right button on the back of the controller doing that. All right, so once I've seen that that works, I actually wanna take a second and show you what happens if things don't work. So the first thing I'm gonna do is close our serial monitor, and then let's go be a little bit chaotic to WIL. And if I can film this better, it's kind of hard to do this one-handed. Let's take the SD card out, reset, and then instantly open that serial monitor again. What we're gonna notice is that we actually get a message telling us that something failed, as well as you'll see that green flashing light right there. Tells us that something's wrong with the SD card. All right, so if we plug the SD card back in, everything will go to working again. This time, let's actually take like the B&O sensor out, or this could be the GPS sensor or the Atlas Scientific sensors. All of them are running on I2C. So if I go ahead, reset WIL, open the serial monitor, what you're gonna see is a nice message saying that the B&O failed. And what we're gonna see here is that there's that nice deep blue LED blinking so that we know that something went wrong with I2C, all right? And then finally, if we have a combination of things, like let's say the SD card and the B&O aren't working or unplugged, or even that with scientific sensors, if we go ahead and reset now and open up our serial monitor, what we're going to see is, hey, both the SD card, the path, the B&O failed. And what do you get when you mix blue and green? We get this like cyan color. So if you might ask, why bother with the LEDs? Well, the next phase of testing for WIL that you want to do before you go out is to not have your laptop connected. And the reason why that's important is because there are times, well, I mean, when WIL's running, you don't want your laptop connected to it. But also there were times that we went out to the field thinking everything was working, but when we actually were running everything on battery power, nothing was working. So let me go ahead and hook up the batteries and show you some of those same tests and a couple of extra tests that I like to do. All right, we've got our battery plugged into WIL for the motors and for the little anchor battery pack to power our Arduino Giga. What I want to show you is what happens if you don't have the laptop plugged in and how we can do some debugging and some things you should check before you leave. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is power on this power switch, and we'll see both our little green lights light up. Now, there's one problem. This blue light always blinks the first time you power the switch on, so you're gonna have to go and reset. And then after that happens, if everything's good to go, we won't get a blinky light there. And then our remote control will actually start adjusting the motors because we start in remote control mode. All right? So the next thing I want to show you is what happens if something is wrong. So like, let's say this micro SD card's unplugged. We'll reset. This is where it's really nice when we don't have the laptop plugged in. Oh, hey, we've got a green blinking light. That means we should go check the micro SD card. All right, if our B&O sensor comes out for whatever reason, reset, blue light, blinky, B&O thing. And then if we have, let's say we have the SD card come out, and these Atlas sensors would cause a blue light to go off if there's an issue. If these come out as well, we should have blue plus green, which gives us a cyan color. And there we go. There's that cyan light blinking to tell us there's an issue on both the I2C bus and our SD card. All right, so if we pop those back in, and then hit reset, we'll hear our motors go. Then we know that everything's good to go. So some things I like to check is just to make sure I can toggle through the modes. When we go to autonomous mode, we should hear the motors try to start moving. Yep, just like that. When we go to tugboat, they'll turn off. And then if we go to remote control, we should have control over them again. So now some things I like to check in remote control mode is if we push forward, we should feel air coming out the back of both motors. And if we push reverse, we should feel air coming out the front of the motors. As well as I like to check when I do the left and right control. If we're trying to rotate left, then this motor is going to go forward and the other motor should go reverse. So if I push left, then I feel a good stream here. And if we go to the other motor and push left, we should feel it in the opposite area. Let me double check that. Oh, it went to autonomous mode. All right, so we're back in remote control mode. No, we're not. All right. And then if I push left, yeah, I feel more air coming out the front. All right, so I always like to check left, right, forward, reverse on the motors to make sure everything's good. I like to make sure that the boat can go into autonomous mode. And if you've changed anything with like the heading, I'd highly encourage you to actually get a printout of the heading on the laptop and actually rotate WIL on one of these tables here until you can verify that what you've changed with the heading approach is actually doing what you expect it to. All right. Yeah, so next thing is how we take it out and do a test out at Lake Olmsted. Thanks.